In this video, I'm going to show you 4 different paleo and AIP friendly seasoning mixes, which you can use to flavor all sorts of dishes. And I'm going to show you some of the ideas of what you can do with these so that you're not just making them and having them sit in your pantry. You actually can use these to make delicious dishes. First, why would you make your own seasoning blend? Well, the ones you find in the stores often have additives like MSG or anti-caking agents. Plus, if you're on the AIP diet, you'll see that many of them include a spice or two that isn't compliant. So making your own allows you to enjoy these seasonings without worry. Plus, you can adjust the ingredients to make them suit your own taste. First, we're going to make a versatile ranch seasoning. To make a half cup, you'll need 1 tablespoon each of sea salt, garlic powder, and onion powder, and 2 tablespoons each of dried parsley, dried basil, and dried chives. Mix well. I didn't have room in my storage container, so I poured it all into a large container, mixed it, and then transferred it back to the storage container. This goes great on a sheet pan of chicken and veggies. Here I have diced boneless chicken thighs, broccoli, carrots, and bacon. And I'm adding approximately 2 tablespoons of the seasoning and a few tablespoons of avocado oil. I then spread it evenly on the pan and then baked it at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 to 30 minutes. You can get the full recipe for this on my website, Thriving on Paleo, and I'll drop the link below as well. Another great use for this seasoning is a ranch dressing. Mix either 1 cup of coconut yogurt or coconut cream with 2 teaspoons of the ranch seasoning and 1 to 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. This is delicious over salads, over roasted veggies, or as a dip for raw carrots and celery. And I'm not gonna lie, I sometimes eat this as is by the spoonful. Next up is a Greek seasoning. To make a half cup of this, you'll need 3 tablespoons of dried oregano, 2 tablespoons dried basil, 1 tablespoon dried dill, 2 tablespoons each of onion powder and garlic powder, and a half tablespoon of sea salt. Again, this is delicious over chicken and veggies for a sheet pan meal. Here I'm using cubed chicken tenders, a diced zucchini, a chopped red onion, a finely diced sweet potato, and a sliced lemon. I added approximately 1.5 tablespoons of the seasoning and drizzled it with 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and then put in the oven at 425 degrees for 20 minutes. I loved it served with a dollop of coconut milk yogurt and some Kalamata olives. Another use for this seasoning is for a Greek vinaigrette dressing. Simply mix 3 tablespoons red wine vinegar with 1/3 cup olive oil, 1 teaspoon honey or maple syrup, and 2 teaspoons of the Greek seasoning. Whisk, or using my favorite method, tightly cover and shake to mix well. Use over salads or roasted veggies. The next seasoning mix is a sage breakfast sausage mix. This savory mix uses a half cup of dried sage, 2 tablespoons of sea salt, 1 tablespoon of coconut sugar or maple sugar, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. I love making these into sausage patties using a ground meat. Here I'm using a pound of ground pork, but you can use any ground meat of choice, with a heaping tablespoon of the seasoning. I'm also adding a finely diced green apple for fun, but that part is totally optional. Form into patties and bake in the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes, or in a pan on the stove for 4 to 5 minutes aside, or until done. And finally, we're making what I call a Tandoori seasoning, which has Indian-inspired flavors without the nightshades. You'll need 2 tablespoons of dried ginger, 1 tablespoon of dried turmeric, 1.5 tablespoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground cloves, 1 teaspoon of sea salt, and 1.5 tablespoons of crushed dried fenugreek leaves. A note on the fenugreek: you'll need to use the leaves if you're on the AIP diet, as the ground powder you find in the stores is typically ground seeds. You can get it at Indian or Asian specialty markets, or if you're like me, off of Amazon. It's also known as kasuri methi and is definitely optional, but really helps to round out the flavor of the seasoning. 2 of my favorite methods of using this seasoning are in turkey meatballs. Simply mix a pound of ground turkey with 1 to 2 tablespoons of the seasoning. Mix, form into meatballs, and bake for 20 minutes at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. It's delicious served with a side of roast cauliflower and a dollop of coconut yogurt. Another really quick and easy way to use this seasoning is to make a tandoori pumpkin soup. I have a more detailed recipe on my site, but you can simplify it even more by just mixing a can of pumpkin puree with 2 cups of chicken or beef broth, a can of full-fat coconut milk, or 1.5 cups of homemade, or your milk of choice, and 2 teaspoons of the seasoning mix. Mix and heat over a stove until your desired temperature. Taste it because you may want to add a bit more seasoning, but it's best to start off conservatively. And then generally for all of these seasonings, if you want to use them over a mixture of meat or seafood and veggies on a sheet pan meal, use 1 to 2 tablespoons per sheet pan. It may seem like a lot, but remember, it's all of the herbs and spices mixed together, plus it gives a lot of flavor to the dish. If you want to use it with ground meats, again, 1 to 2 tablespoons per pound is a good rule of thumb. If you want to know how it tastes, you can always mix it and then drop a small portion into a hot pan, cook it, taste it, and adjust the seasonings as desired. And you can store these in an airtight container in the pantry for approximately 1 year. You'll get longer storage and flavor out of it if you start with newly purchased herbs and spices versus ones that have been in your pantry already for 5 years. But make do with what you have. Give them a good shake before using to counteract any settling. All right, now you have some great ideas for some seasoning mixes and what to do with them. But what about those crazy busy weeknights where you still want to have a nutritious meal but don't want to spend hours in the kitchen? Well, check out this video where I give you 3 different options that you can easily do on a weeknight and have dinner on the table but still be nutritious and delicious at the same time.